Hello and welcome to The Mortgage Conversation with Saffron for Intermediaries. I'm your host, Tony Hall. Yet another stellar guest list today, and I will ask everybody to introduce themselves in a moment. Before that, a couple of important things. I just want to say we're recording this episode on Friday, the 15th of August. So any of the comments or stories or anything we talk about will be up to that date. And the last thing is anything we say today is our views and not necessarily those of our employers or companies that we may own. So let's meet our guests. Welcome back, Lee Williams. It's great to have the LinkedIn influencer back on the show.
Thanks.
So if you can just tell everybody who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Lee Williams, National Sales Manager at Saffron for Intermediaries.
Fantastic. And we have two new friends of the show today. So first of all, John, in true Cilla Black style, if you can tell our listeners who you are, where you are from and what you do. That was awful, wasn't it? That was Cilla Black in her bad days.
Wasn't great, mate.
No, that was dreadful. Apologies to everybody that likes Cilla Black.
I'm not going to do it in a scout.
No.
John Stones, Managing Director of Mortgage First, ARs of Stonebridge, based up in Chesterfield in Derbyshire.
John, thank you and welcome to the show. It's great to have you. And lastly, but by no means least, Soph.
Hiya, I'm Sophie Waugh. My job title is Mortgage Technical Manager and I work at John Charcoal.
Fantastic. Right, let's get stuck in. So we're currently in exciting times for the market with changes happening fast, driven by tech, innovation, competition. We're seeing competition not just on rates, but also more criteria changes. Actually, let me start that again. We have seen more criteria changes in the last 6 months than we have in the last 6 years. So the battlefield is changing, which is great for consumers who have more specialist need. With more lenders embracing complexity, it could be argued that high-quality mortgage advice is more important than ever. Now, there's a great article from Kevin Robbins recently, MD at Mortgage Services L&G, talking about there's lots of stuff going on, but actually that need for advice is even more important than ever. So let's come to you guys on that topic first. I suppose, what are you seeing as a market, is part of your business, but also what's your view on this whole advice and the FCA's view to try and potentially dumb it down in certain areas? John, I'll come to you first.
Yeah, I think for us, there's a lot of talk out there about sort of the role of advisors and that kind of thing, particularly around AI as well and that sort of thing. And I think for us, we're seeing more than ever, there's still a real appetite from clients for advice. I think people still want that human touch side of things. We're certainly seeing through our figures the demand for actually speaking to an advisor being sort of more prevalent than ever in the market, I think.
Good. Soph, about you?
Yeah, so 8 years or so ago when I started at John Charcoal, I remember figures were coming out, 60% of consumers were using brokers. 2024, IMLA said it was 89% and it's set to be 90% this year. So I think the growing demand is quite obvious. There's more complexity. It is the difference between someone just walking down the high street, going to their bank and getting told they can't get a mortgage and then believing that, to actually understanding actually something that might not be simple for one high street lender or one bank. There will be lenders out there, and it is the difference between owning a property and not in a lot of cases. Absolutely, it's really important that the broker market continues to grow, and along with, let's say, consumer demand and the way people's lives are changing, we adapt to it, and the need's only going to keep growing for brokers.
Do you get customers coming and going, I've seen what I want, just give it me?
We see people go online and say, I've seen this rate. But it quite quickly becomes apparent to them, as say, with our sort of knowledge and explaining, that isn't going to be necessarily right for them or even available. So it's few and far between.
Okay.
You get a lot of, actually, it's a lot more people saying, can you tell me what I need? Because they don't have any idea how it works in terms of all the different products out there. There's more and more becoming available and more different, niche products sort of being advertised. Consumers don't understand it as much as they did, as say 10 years ago when they would go, I want that rate there, that product, and it may well have been available. Whereas now it is, hang on, you tell me what's going to be right for me because I don't understand what's out there. I
think there's still a lot of my mate down the pub said I can get this type thing. But I think there's also a massive element now of, like Sophie said, it's people come to us saying, It's not so much about the rate, it's can you get me a mortgage based on my situation?
Yeah.
And then it's looking at what the rates look
Yeah.
like. It's more about finding a need for that whatever their niche bit of criteria is that most people nowadays have got some kind of element to them.
Excellent. Lee, your career spanned both camps, lender and distributor. So
Yeah.
what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think for me, obviously the need for advice, one is more apparent than ever because of their circumstances. But also I think that firms, advisors are doing a better job of actually highlighting the need for advice rather than going to the bank. The bank says no, and then that be the journey. Because I remember years ago, that'd be the journey. You just pop in, see your bank, can I get a mortgage? Yes, great, move on. If it's a no, some would even stop there, wouldn't even look elsewhere. I think there's now so much, and this where social media is probably coming into it as well, being able to actually say, this is how we've helped somebody and highlight, and people actually being able to resonate with that need. I think that's what's driving advice as well, actually becoming personable, relevant. Those firms, those advisors, good advisors and firms, obviously yourselves, are very good at that. I think that's what drives advice.
And I think there's a large part of you can't get to see your bank or speak to your bank either at the moment as well, which is a big issue as well.
Yeah.
So the need for advice has never been bigger.
Just one question for me is: do you see the perceived cost of advice as a barrier to consumers?
I don't. The amount of people that, again, we charge a fee as standard, and there are fee-free brokers, and there is obviously the routes that you can take where you arrange your own mortgage and there isn't a fee. But I think the service element there, not only the sound advice, but the service piece where that person, that client does not need to then deal with constantly chasing solicitors, worrying about documents, not understanding what they're actually being asked for, because it is, again, our job as brokers, and we have administrators who go, right, let me break this down to you and make it so it's easy to understand what you need to provide. And they help not only the lender get to an offer quickly, but also the piece afterwards, which can be a headache for a lot of consumers, the piece where you're getting through the solicitor work, dealing with obviously, understanding inquiries, understanding the chain. They kind of take that whole big stress, and most people say, moving is so stressful, but a massive part of that is taken away when you have a firm or a broker, a broker firm that has the whole end-to-end service. And that to a lot of people is, you can say priceless, but it's worth a weight in gold because you're not taking time off work. You're not spending your Saturdays and Sundays worrying about the house move. You can go do things with your family. It's a lot of time taken away.
I absolutely 100% agree, and it's one of the questions that we kind of look at a lot, isn't it, Lee? Around that sounded great, right? Does your website say that?
I mean, I always used to position it with the advisors that it's about how you position it with the client, how you sell that service, because we charge a fee as well, and it's never been a barrier for us.
Yeah.
And yes, there's some great businesses out there don't charge fees. There's some great businesses that charge more than us. So, but I think it's how you position it with the client. If you just lead straight out, oh yeah, we charge X, they're going to turn around and go, well, I'm not paying that. But if you're positioning it and selling the service and explaining what they get for that service, then it's never been a barrier for us in terms of growing the business.
Yeah, and I don't think it should be. You expect to pay a fee for a solicitor. You expect to pay a fee for an accountant. Mortgage brokers are professionals, it's just like those, and I think that's the problem. It's not seen on that level, is it? Which is a real shame.
And I think some of it is, again, how you position it with a client, because you'll often hear you get paid by the bank. Why am I paying you? But once you explain the level of work that goes into it and the cost of doing it and the amount of time to process an application and go through the admin team, actually pounds per hour, it's still not that bad.
It's very good. But I think the point we're making is a lot of brokers we did this survey a year or so ago on self-employed, and the fact that 3/4 of them didn't think they could get a mortgage. Okay, even though we know it's quite easy to get a mortgage these days with somebody. It's going to cost you somewhere. But we then looked at it and said, what do people's websites say about what they're good at? And pretty much all of them talk about fluffy stuff, but don't go, we're really good for self-employed. We're really good. So that's the point I'm trying to make is, how does your website tell people what you do to value and justify advice in general, not going to your mate and then going down the pub? So it's just a reflection, or have you got that kind of stuff, or do you kind of mandate that, or look at AR websites and say this is what you should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's a difficult one. I mean, I suppose the flip side of that is you don't want to pigeon as a business. I
Yeah,
don't want to pigeonhole us
absolutely,
into
yeah.
one area of this is what we do and this is what we're known for. You know, Mortgage First as a business, people say, well, what do you specialise in? Nothing really.
Yeah.
You specialise in mortgages.
Yeah.
So yes, you're right. You could go down to that level of, yeah, this is what we're really, really good at. But actually, I don't want to pigeonhole ourselves as a business. We want to be good at everything.
Yeah. Look, it's a bit like us, right? We're really good at self-employed and self-build and large loans, but we appeal to everybody. But actually, if we're going to appeal to anybody, it's those ones, because that's what we excel in. I think it's a good point. Good. Any other thoughts on that from Neil D? Should we move on? No? Okay, coming back then, we'll come to you first, John. So what are the biggest challenges you face at the moment as a business owner? And what's keeping you awake at night?
What's keeping me awake at night? The heat.
Obviously, yeah.
How Sunderland are going to do in the Premier League is keeping me awake
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
From a business point of view, I guess people, and I mean that in the sense of people. You know, as you grow a business, you obviously will bring people into your business, and you know, not a negative slant, but obviously. The more people you have in the business, the more issues there are to deal with and resolve, whether that's, you know, performance or personal issues. So, but also the responsibility to those people as well. You know, we've got nearly 75 staff now in the business. That's a lot of responsibility. A lot of people who are depending on you in the decisions. I mean, it's not even 75, because you think 2/3 of them have got a partner, probably half of those have got one or more kids. Couple of hundred people there. I mean, that will keep me awake if I think too much about it. But I think for me, it's the responsibility of running a business and the decisions that you make that could have real impact on a large portion of people. And you know, we're growing the business, and often me and Lisa will we don't take too long to make decisions, but my team will say, you know, we're real thinkers. We'll sit down and, you know, we never rush into a decision. Often I would like to think we come to the right decision. But yeah, it's making sure that the decisions that we make are not just right for us as business owners, but are right for the people in the business as well.
And you're clearly doing that well, because look how the business is doing, mate. So, Sophie, what about you? What's the biggest challenges in your view, for you or John Charcombe?
Well, it's similar in a way. Obviously, I do not run the business, but it's very much a case of making sure everyone is happy within the business. We've got 160 odd brokers now. A lot of them are working from home. They're not sat in offices. You just want to make sure they still feel part of the team. So it is a case of making sure, you know, you are being available for anyone when they need that support. That's, I think, the biggest thing, is saying, right, I need to make sure that all of these brokers know that I'm there if they need me. I don't want anyone sat in their living room going, why am I here? Why am I working for John Charcombe? Why am I being a mortgage broker? I want everyone to wake up each day and think, right, okay, well, what's the business going to give me today? As I say, we do lead support for a lot of them as well, making sure, obviously, they're getting fed the right kind of leads, just making sure they're generally happy where they are and they're not, you know, in a situation where they're sat at home on their own feeling like they are alone. And I want them to feel like they can thrive at John Charcombe.
Good. So, Lee, coming to you then, from your perspective, what's the biggest challenges that you're facing, or we face as a lender?
I think, like, for any lender, the biggest thing for me is how do you add value to the right people at the right time? Okay, so those headaches that you've got, how do we support that? And I think that's where I see my team of going, actually, if we work closely with you and actually understand the pain points that you've got, you know, you may have brokers that are fantastic at certain lending, not so good at other lending. Education is going to support them. It then supports you in the element of the fact that you're obviously providing that. You know, we're an asset. That's what we should be. And I think that's the challenge. Just making sure that we are doing that with the right firms, with the right people at the right time.
And I think the real hard part for lenders now is how you actually do that in the kind of post-COVID world. You know, we've got 50 odd brokers right now, and you come in the office on a good day, you might see 3.
Yeah.
And you know, we've got them up in the northeast, we've got them down on the south coast. It's like, well, how as a lender do you support that? And you know, lenders always say to us, like, what more can we do to support you? What they actually mean is, how can we get more business from you?
Absolutely.
But you know, the answer is, it's difficult, because what does a broker want from a lender, really? You know, other than, you know, changes in criteria, they want somebody who's going to help them place a case, and somebody who's going to get involved when it's the fan, and really it's a hard one to answer as to how you really build those kind of really close relationships with firms in the current workplace where everybody's spread out all over the country, and you can't just go and sit in an office and be sat with 50 brokers and that kind of thing. It is a real hard one.
Yeah, it is. I think, it's all about trust. It's all about winning that trust and getting that first opportunity for them to trust you, and then, from our perspective, leveraging it and using that trust to grow trust in others. But it is a challenge. I think you're right, Lee, that adding value is something that we, as a lender that's not rate driven, that is all about solutions. It's always about how do we demonstrate that we're solution focused, not, sorry.
Yeah, do you want just to add on to what John said? I think it is more strategic thinking than it's probably ever been before. If you're a BDM that's got a small patch and your job is to hit certain numbers by meetings, fine. We're not that.
No.
We're very much more of a case of, how can we genuinely add that value? So you might have 60 advisors, 150 advisors, but of that we can probably add value to, I don't know, it might be 10% of those. How do we get those 10%? And quite frankly, I don't care where they are, we have somebody that can work with them, even though they'd be registered in a completely different location to where they are. And I think that's where strategically that's the challenge, is just making sure that we have that mindset, the right people, and more importantly, we actually get to know each other at that level, rather than it just being, hi, I've come in, I've seen 3 advisors, I've had a great day, ticked the box,
Yeah.
I've got home, happy days.
Yeah.
I mentioned Sunderland, so we're all good. So no, and I think that's the key thing, because we do have so much mirroring of pain points. Actually, we can actually support in that element, and we shouldn't ever feel alone. I feel like this is where this industry, although big and collectively we can be great, actually, when I put my hat on where I was part of a network, you did feel more alone and you're in your own little bubble, because that's what you're dealing with day to day. And I just think if we can merge our worlds together better strategically, that actually we should be able to go, you've got that, this is where we can help.
Good. Right, so let's go back. So, John, you talked about people, yeah? So how difficult is it to recruit advisors in the current climate?
I mean, personally, we don't find it that difficult, but I think that's took a long time to get to that point. When you've built a brand and you are confident in your proposition, recruitment obviously becomes easier. Earlier days when we were a little bit small and we didn't really have any brand, nobody knew who we were, that's really hard to recruit good people, because it's every man and his dog's recruiting if you go on LinkedIn, and it's how you distinguish yourself between the others. I think you need to understand what you are as a business and recruit in the right areas. We've done a lot of work recently in terms of we kind of categorise A, B, C advisors. So a C advisor would be someone who might do slightly lower figures, but probably quite self-sufficient. I love C advisors. There's not much of a drain. I'll take C advisors all day long. A advisors, you're really high-performing advisors, and we know as a business, actually, our model's probably not going to appeal to A advisors.
Right.
But what we're really good at is taking B advisors and then turning them into A advisors. So I think recruitment becomes easier when you know what makes a good advisor for your firm, and then recruit into those areas.
And how? All right, so I'll come back to you on that. So, what about you?
Similar to the ABC model, we have created, and we've had it now for a while, a model where we kind of allow people to say, okay, if you're looking to join our company, John Charcoal, let's work out what's going to work for you, but very much the B model. We do provide leads. We have so much support from lenders, from sort of all avenues of the business. You can almost feel like an employee but have the flexibility almost of being self-employed with our sort of B strategy. And then people flourish and they get their own back book, they stay long enough to be able to say, right, I can now turn into A advisor where I don't need any more lead support. But I mean, the recruitment side, it's the only thing that is challenging, I think, is for people to take that step, they have to kind of make sure they've got that financial soundness, especially because they are self-employed mostly when they're coming into John Charcoal. So making sure, they feel comfortable enough to say, right, potentially have been employed somewhere with a back book that they're going to have to leave behind. They have to have that trust, especially. But I mean, our brand has kind of got to a place now where you can sort of trust in the brand. It's a big leap for a lot of people, especially in, you know, the current where we are still with cost of living and everything. It's a big leap. They've got to have that financial soundness in the background. But again, it's kind of like it's got to fit the right kind of person. And when they do fit, they do flourish and turn into their May advisors.
And I think there's a big problem in our industry with people recruiting for the wrong reasons as well. You know, when I started growing Mortgage First, my first recruit was an admin because I was doing all my own admin and doing. I got to a point where I couldn't cope. Then once I then hit the point, even with admin, that's when I took my first advisor. But I think a lot of people now recruit because they want to be a business owner and they want to grow a business and they want to. But then what then happens is they recruit those advisors in or recruit an advisor in, and they can't actually feed them in the way that they thought they were going to be. A hell of a lot of our recruitment, because again, you know, we offer leads, we offer admin support.
Right.
A hell of a lot of our recruitment comes from people who might have made that jump and gone somewhere, and the dream and the reality have turned into two different things.
Yeah.
They're not getting what they were promised. So yeah, I think there's a big issue with that. We see so many people that I've only been here for 5 months or 6 months, but what they told me it was going to be like and what it isn't are two completely different
So
things.
that leads me perfectly on to the question I was going to ask, which is about how, you know, what's the average lifespan of your advisors and what do you do to retain them? Now, you've given us some examples already. Is there anything else that you do that
I mean, you know,
keeps people?
The financial support is a big thing. You know, that people are particularly if they are either jumping from employed or, like say, they might be self-employed but leaving behind a client bank. You used to say, have you got 3 months worth of money to cover yourself? It's 6 to 9 months now that you need to be looking at. So we can help them out with that. And again, very, very similar. Our model, how it works is we give advisors leads, we bring them in, but on the basis of you almost move up the totem pole. So these new advisors coming down at the bottom, they need lots of leads and they're going to take leads to build up the client bank. But whilst ever they're at Mortgage First, those clients are retained by them. So the longer they are here, the less reliant they become on new leads
sources.
And they just work. You know, we've got advisors who we only really started recruiting, taking on other advisors about 11, 12 years ago. We've got a couple of advisors come to the 10-year anniversary. And I don't think either of them take any leads offers anymore. Whereas these new advisors that started last week, they're going to be hungry little lead pigs taking lots of leads to build up the client bank, and that's kind of how it works. So I think it's the support you give them. But generally the main reason that advisors will join a firm is if you can give them business.
Yeah,
and that's what you need to. You know, otherwise, why they join you? Go off and do it yourself if you don't need them.
Yeah. And is that mirrored by you guys?
Yeah, very similar. I mean, we've got brokers now well over 20 years. I've been there, seen John Charcoal from when it was just very much London-based to what it is now. And as I say, they're kind of at a situation, even people that have been here 5+ years, they see the people that have been here, the people that have just started see the people that have been here 5+ years. They don't need to take any leads anymore. They're in an ideal situation. They've got their back book that they're dealing with. They've got referrals. It's all business that people can turn over much easier than necessarily leads that are coming in. So I think it's quite, you see these people that have been here a long time. And again, being self-employed, maybe they have a lot more time to do things that they want to. They might work slightly less days because they have got that retention and backbook, and that's what people look up to and go, right, if I stick at what I'm doing now, work really hard with the leads I'm getting, get them referrals, I can be in that position. So yeah, definitely, they look up to people that's been there a long time, and that sort of is a goal for a lot of people.
So Lee, from both heads, your lender, lenders now, and Lee celebrates 3 years with us in the next week or so, which is 3 years working with me. Good lad.
Lost my hair.
I'm going to say I had a haircut to celebrate.
Yeah. So, with wearing both hats, what can lenders do to support mortgage advisors?
I just want very quickly on John's side in terms and what you're saying about others looking up to others that have stayed. One thing I also see in our current role and what I saw when I was working with Network is actually these firms that want to bring on advisors, they do look up to firms as well and see the pain. They see what you've achieved now. My question to them is always, have they seen the pain points you've gone through to get there? Because I know, John, when we were talking before, there's firms that go, I want to build a Mortgage First. but they want to bring in loads of advisors. But they haven't actually got to a point where they're at that breaking point themselves to then go, I need advisors. And creating that need is so key. So I'm seeing that at the moment massively in the market.
It's the modern way. It's the social media. It's the LinkedIn. It's everything. People, they aspire to. I want to run a business. I want to have a big business and grow my business. Like, that's brilliant. That's amazing. That's just what we need. But you've got to do it for the right reasons, not because you just want to tell people I've got 10 advisors and I can do this and that and the other. Because they're all, if you bring them in, they're all just going to disappear if you don't actually deliver on what you said.
And value per head is such a key thing. So
Absolutely.
sorry, I'm seeing that all the time. So I want to lead on to that.
No,
and
absolutely.
plus, I was in a really fortunate position when I was with Stonebridge to be able to see how ARs really did look up to Mortgage First, going, I want to achieve that, but actually they didn't. Some of them anyway didn't appreciate the pain points you've had to go through to get there. But and all the hard work that's been done to do that. So I thought I'd just highlight that because I was in a very fortunate position to see that. And then in terms of what can lenders do, well, my answer is I think it depends on the lender. Because I think that if you've got a proposition that enables you to educate and if you are there with some influence with underwriting or working together with actually, getting cases through, or whether that be educating particular areas. We do a lot of education on self-employed, self-build, contractors, stuff that might not seem complex, but actually for some brokers that absolutely is complex. And in some situations, we know that customer circumstances create it to be complex. So that education piece is so key. And we get to a point in about 3 months' time where I start posting loads about business plans. I do think business plans are so key. And actually, how many business plans have looked at business mix, have looked at opportunities within markets they might not be tapping into, might not be, the lead sources are great that they've got, but actually, is there other opportunities they've got so they can create those pain points that they need more advisors, or actually sometimes the best decision can be to scale down the headcount. To go, actually, we can get better return per person and then build again. And we've seen that as well happen. But I think that's where lenders can really, really support with that. But let's face it, we know that some are better than others. And I think propositions help with that as well.
So from a distribution perspective then, so how can lenders help you guys more than we currently do? Either of you, don't mind.
I mean, from us, from our point of view, again, like Lee said, it's just collaboration and education, really. Like I said earlier on, everybody wants to, we'll ask what can we do? What can we do more? And it is a hard question to answer. I think it's working with the advisors, it's building those relationships, it's educating them on what the proposition is, and it's it's no coincidence that the good lenders with good BDMs will get more business from the brokers, because the broker needs help placing a case. Who are they going to pick up the phone to? If a broker has got a difficult case and they know that on one side there's a lender where the BDM's got zero power to do anything, or there's a BDM that's going to go to battle for you on it, you're going to go down that route. So I think just collaboration and educating the brokers on what the proposition is key.
Sophie, anything to add?
I agree. I mean, I'm so fortunate in my position that I work so closely with the lenders, and you get to see how much they do, and it's constantly growing. You always do, like you say, get asked, what more can we do? And they do so much. They do want to do the education piece. You're always saying, how can we get out there more? How can we speak to more brokers and make sure they understand, and so that they have our trust? I mean, it's kind of the obvious thing. If I had to say one thing more, it's always going to be sort of with some lenders constantly moving with the tech improvements that can be done, maybe more of a streamlined process with a lot of with some cases, less documents and so on. Of course, there is the understanding of why lots of documents are sometimes needed, but there's got to be some cases out there with some lenders where you can go, right, this tech still seems so far behind that lenders. How is that so?
It's going to be easier to do business with some of them.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I can say, because I do think the relationship piece, and again, I think it maybe is the role that I do, where I do work so closely with the lenders. I know they want that relationship with the brokers. That bit is growing, and that's great to see. But it is like the tech, in the fact that as a broker, you want to be able to go, I'm going to put it with that lender, I want to know it's going to be a streamlined process and I'm not going to be sat getting frustrated at what I'm having to input.
Absolutely. Lee?
Yeah, no, just to add on what you said, obviously where you work so closely with lenders, and this is where that model really works, is that you'll make it really clear these are the best advisors for you to work with. And I think that's such a, I'll go back to strategy. You know, if you say I'm going to be there for 100 advisors, or I'm going to be there for 10 advisors that you've highlighted that absolutely will get a lot of value out of that, we can spend much better quality time building that relationship, trust, understand what actually will add value, rather than just treating everybody the same. And I think that's...
Sorry, I think a key thing we've been doing on that note is the flip side of that is, again, there's no point of BDM reaching out to 50 advisors and trying to do them all. So we've been saying to, okay, well, who do you liken yourself to? And we'll see who's doing business with them, and we'll put you in touch with those, because it might be that they need to know more about your proposition because they're putting business that you like elsewhere. So, you know, and it's about looking at who's not doing lots of business with you and doing it that way as well.
And I think from that point of view, rather than us saying, you know, how do I do more? You know, and it being this just very bland question, really, it now becomes, actually, I can come back to you and say, this is what we're actually doing to support. And then hopefully that supports what we started with, which was, these are the headaches that you've got. Actually, if we're giving that feedback to you, then that makes it easier for you to understand, you know, what value we've either added, or what support, or what else could we do off the back of that.
One of the other ways that lenders can add value is outside of the proposition, is something that we look at, which is helping people that have tried to use us but failed, and pointing out to them why it's failed. So I chair our intermediary oversight committee, which is looking from a governance perspective, how are we creating the best outcomes for consumers via the management of brokers and relationship management. And one of the things that we're gonna send out to everybody really soon is this is what's stopping you getting right first time. And it's quite interesting, the amount there which is linked. We have kind of 3 categories, and the main one is income verification. So incorrect information put in, inability to accurately understand a set of accounts, putting forward people who are illiquid or insolvent. So there's a real challenge. So we're going to share that soon, because I think it's really powerful for you guys to understand. These people are trying to use you. It isn't always about finding the next broker. It's about helping the one that's tried to use you. So as a lender, we're really focusing in that space, and we'll share that data with everybody soon.
And I think for people running teams of advisors, it's really useful as well. Not just, you know, from I'd be asking, well, why did you place that case with them in that case? If it clearly wasn't,
absolutely, it was never going to.
Not just a case of, oh, it might fit, you know, it might fit or it might fit somewhere else. Why on earth did you try and place it if you couldn't verify the income, or you got the income wrong? So it can spot flaws that way as well.
Yeah, so we'll share that. I think education's a broad subject, and we need to do all the new markets on diversification, but actually, it's the amount of people who try us that don't succeed. And that the outcome is there's a consumer there that's been upset, disadvantaged, could have had a deal up faster with somebody else, or if they provided the right information. So that's a big thing. So kind of onto that, or slightly linked to it, is around this market, you know, is always lauded as pale, male and stale, isn't it? So average age of mortgage brokers I still think is mid-50s and male. How do we encourage new advisors into this market? How do you do that as a business owner first, John?
I mean, we are probably guilty of not doing it, and I think as an industry we're really guilty of not doing it. And I think the main reason for that is going back to what I said about growing for the right reasons. Most people are recruiting because they need to, they've got extra leads, or they've got extra business to be done. So by definition, you want an experienced advisor. You want somebody who's going to come in and hit the ground, and we are very, very guilty of that. But likewise, if we don't do something to bring new talent through, then, you know, using a football analogy, you want players for your first team, not players that are going to take a year or two to break into the first team. But if you look at really successful teams, they're recruiting players for now and players for the future as well. So it's something we're really, really conscious of. And, you know, I think it's education is a key point of the younger generation as well. You know, Lisa's doing a lot of stuff in schools. I know a lot of businesses are now, which is brilliant, which is kind of highlighting it as financially educating kids, but also highlighting it as a career path as well. So something we're doing is and there's some people doing great, you know, other big brokerages doing kind of academy things
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
But also as businesses start willing to take a bit of a chance on people, and so we want to make sure that we've got ambitious growth plans, but as part of that, in the next few years, that every year we're taking at least a couple of people through that have no background. I'd
Yeah.
love to do nothing more than have a team of people that had no bad habits picked up over the
Yes.
years. We can
Yes.
train them how
Train
we
them
want them
exactly
to
how
be.
you
We
want them
can
to be.
teach them the mortgage first way and all
Yeah.
the good lessons. But sometimes, it's just not practical in your business
Yeah.
because you're bringing
well,
people in to
yeah,
do it.
absolutely.
But yeah, as an industry, we all need to, as well as investing in the first team players, we need to be
Yeah.
looking at the youth team as well.
So what's John Charcoal's view on this then, Sophie?
So I completely agree. I think there is, the business model where now we are very much remote, people are working all over, especially mainly self-employed. It is very hard to take on people that, I say, that we have experienced advisors. That's what we look for, because otherwise it is, it's very difficult to necessarily train from the beginning and be constantly available. Like 5 years ago before COVID, when we were in the office, it was a lot easier because we take people on that had never advised before. But we'd be in the office, so there's always the support right there, whether it's management or someone that you're sat next to that's advising as well, that's experienced. But it is that much more difficult now, especially the way we are laid out. But I mean, there is great academies out there, and there is sort of people notoriously know sort of you generally start maybe in a state agency or advising at the bank or whatever it may be. And that sort of then is sort of, they do have really, really good training academies, but there isn't enough. And I think everyone just falls in the job itself. How many people say, I was at school and I wanted to be a mortgage advisor?
Yeah,
it's great at least as going to schools and making it known as a
It's
career.
not
because
it's not a vocational qualification.
all of us fell into it, right? We all fell into
Yeah,
it. I definitely fell
absolutely.
into it.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a case of, look, actually what our job is actually really, really, I love my job, and it is a good job. We're actually giving people their homes, and that's the biggest thing in a
We're
lot
dream
of people's
makers.
lives. Yeah.
I wanted to be the head of dreams in one job. They wouldn't let me change my title.
Exactly, and it is actually if anyone said to me, what's your job, I tell them I love it, and it's
Yeah.
it is a great career, but there isn't enough people shouting about actually what you're doing for that consumer at the end of it and how you're making people's generally dreams come true.
Yeah.
But then, so it does need to be more of an educational tool, but it does need to take more firms to be willing to do maybe that training and more academies from the bottom. But it's just as to whether your firm can, how it's laid
Yeah.
out and whether you can do that.
Lee, I could see you itching to say
Yeah,
something.
no, I just think that
He's there in the background, but he got like that.
No, yeah, sorry,
Pick me.
I'm very handsy. But no, I for me, it's fine saying absolutely you want that academy, but there's and that absolutely I understand that. But I'm sure if you had somebody who was absolutely green, but you absolutely bought into them, I'm sure you'd be looking at how do we find a way. And I think that's where the root cause for me is, how do you get people to join the industry for the right reasons?
Yeah.
A lot of people join because they can earn X amount within X period of time, which is normally pie in the sky in terms of their expectations. And it's going back to what you were saying about actually our outcomes that we achieve are amazing. We just don't shout about it as much. And you go back to that article, that we talked about before, where we're talking about the need for advice, the need for advisors. Well, ultimately, if we link those together and create that sort of, this is an absolutely amazing job, because actually what we're doing is X, Y, and Z, and it's actually, that should drive that need as well. And it's difficult with social media and marketing, because sometimes you can't see that reward. But where you are posting and talking about what you achieve, you might not see the people coming to you. But I wouldn't be surprised if it isn't driving people to come into the industry. You're just not able to see the reward of that, if that makes sense. And I think there's definitely firms that would be definitely driving that without even realising. In my opinion, so more of that is needed.
Yeah, and look, for our listeners and viewers, there is something that the industry got together a couple of years ago, which is called the Working in Mortgages Initiative. So that was a collaboration between the kind of trade body that looks after lenders and the trade body that looks after intermediaries, and they came up with Working in Mortgages. So if you want to, we'll put the link to the website into this podcast, but it's workinginmortgages.org.co.uk, and that is explicitly set up to help and support people who want to join this amazing market. Because once you're in it, it's a lot of fun, isn't it,
Yeah.
guys?
Absolutely.
We work hard. There's a lot of ups and downs, but it's great fun. I've been in it 38 years now. Shock, I know, but it's true.
Thought you'd
It's
been
true.
longer.
Thanks, mate. Yeah, I haven't retired just yet. Sorry, in joke for others not watching. So, one of the things though that the Working in Mortgage Initiative does really well, and it's my next question for the panel, is mentoring. What's your view on mentoring?
I mean, for me, I think it's brilliant. I think everybody needs someone to mentor them. Whether you are a brand new advisor starting out in the industry, whether you're a advisor like we're talking about, whether you're a business owner, I think there will always be somebody who knows more than you and who's gone through what you're going through. Doesn't have to be a formal thing, you know. It doesn't have to be will you mentor me or I will mentor you. It can be happening without you even knowing about it. You know, I had two people that I would class as mentors as I was starting out and growing the business, and they probably didn't know they were mentoring me at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know they were mentoring me,
Yeah.
but now I look back at you know, Richard Adams being one, the main one from Stonebridge, who's sadly no longer here. I used to lean on Rich all the time because he'd been through what I was wanting to do and what
Yeah.
I was doing, and you know, now I look back at that, and you know, that was formulative in helping me become what I
Absolutely.
am today. So absolutely vital. But like I say, it can happen without you even knowing it's happening, and you might not realise it until later on.
Yeah, excellent. Sophie, what about you?
Yeah, massively agree. It doesn't have to be a formal thing. Everyone generally in day-to-day life, work-wise and in your personal life, you're getting mentored. And I mean, work-wise in our job, it can be the difference between someone trying it out, joining a new firm, whether they're experienced or not, and only being there for 6 months to 18 months because they think, I cannot deal with this. And the difference between being thriving and staying there a long time, getting that back book, building up all that confidence and having almost like, I say, someone to lean on whilst they're, you know, you lean on them a little bit, but they're also guiding you. And yeah, say people might not even know they're being mentors to a lot of people, but advisors will look up to certain people within firms, and that'll be the reason they, you know, they are excelling. So yeah, it's really, really important.
Yeah, and look, the good thing about the mentoring working mortgage scheme is free, and obviously it's open to those who might not have these connections that you've talked about there, which are amazing. But for those who are brand new in and just want to learn this market, you can literally put your skills in, apply to be a mentee, and then you match yourself with someone on the mentor program. I think there's over 300 of us. I'm on it. I mentor people. I absolutely love it. It's great to be able to give 38 years of knowledge to somebody that wants to learn and listen, which is superb. But it's great for people if they just want to get into this market and want to have someone trusted. I know that we talk about it a lot at Saffron, and our new BDMs, we encourage them to find mentors, which they're doing, because it just go and find somebody who's been a BDM for years and understand, you know, to your point with Richard, how that works. Lee, any thoughts from you on mentor?
Yeah, and I just think anyone that's got a slightly different point of view, I think it always just helps as well. It's a different lens on something is always useful. And like you said, I've had mentors that we've never had that chat and gone, you're now my mentor. I've got one person in particular I can think of that has always been through that journey with me, and then recently that's changed because I've got into different positions and you move in line with that with your journey, and I am now looking at trying to pass that on because someone actually reached out to me and said I'd actually find it quite useful. So I never thought I'd be asked that. It was quite a privilege. I haven't said yes yet, but yeah, it sounds like I am going to. But yeah,
Keep it in key.
Yeah, I'll keep it quiet. I'll keep it quiet.
Seem too desperate.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, I think it is a really good part of this industry that we are so open to working with each other, because actually the market's big enough for everybody. But most people act that way.
Yeah.
Some don't. But I think that if you are that way, we thrive.
I think it's a brilliant point, and I've spoke about it with loads of people. I've got lots of people in the industry who run businesses, bigger, smaller, similar size, and some people say, well, why you know, they're the competition. They're not the competition. You know, the market's big enough for everybody, and you know, it actually helps talking to other business owners or other people doing similar roles to you from a different background, getting a different perspective on it. And I think, yeah, as an industry, we should be even more. We're great, but we should be even more collaborative on stuff.
I agree. To Lee's point, there's enough business to go around. Was it £515 billion of opportunities this year? I think that's enough. So, wow, look at the time. One last question, because we have rattled through the last 45 minutes, which has been amazing. So, final question. We were going to talk about AI. It's a subject that's talked about a lot, so I'm going to pass on that, but it might be relevant to how you answer this next question. So, we'll come to Sophie, you first. What do you think the market is going to look like in 5 years' time?
So 5 years' time is a long time when it comes to like the way the mortgage market can go. So it's absolutely crazy. You know, I don't want to say, oh, let's talk about what the rates will look like, anything like that, because who knows? Let's be honest. We didn't think there was going to be the massive hike a couple of years ago. We didn't know where rates was going to be now, and we do never know. Obviously, we're hoping they go down, but 5 years' time, who knows? They could be going back up again. So in terms of actually our job and how the consumers are going to be dealing with mortgages, it's only going to become more tech-driven, of course. That's only just going to take off. Like you say, AI, we don't want to talk about it necessarily, but it comes up all the time. There's only going to be more of that implemented. I think broker firms, they have to see it as a power tool, not a threat. So there is going to be more of it. Use it to your advantage so that AI can excel at doing the stuff that we don't actually enjoy doing, and we can get on with the personal stuff, the advice and the stuff we actually like doing. So that is going to be built into it, and that's going to be, you know, only taking off over the next 5 years. I think there's going to be a lot more. I mean, now we see a lot more product initiative, green mortgages, this, that, and the other. I think there's only going to come again more of that, and again, the more need to have a broker so that consumers can go, what on earth is a retrofit? What on earth is this kind of product? And we're there to explain it, because there is going to be a wider array of different types of mortgages, and they're going to have different names, and we're going to be the ones to understand it and provide that right information and advice. So I can only see it becoming not necessarily more complicated, but more advanced and, you know, actually more interesting, if that makes sense. It'll just be more interesting for us as advisors, because it's going to become more niche. But we'll have the AI and the tech stuff to help us do the stuff so that we're able to concentrate on that.
Cool. John?
That. Basically.
Excellent. Done.
I mean, it's very, very similar. I mean, who knows? Our industry is crazy.
Yeah.
God knows what 5 years will be, but exactly that. You know, tech, AI. As a business, we want to be doing more without having to keep taking on more people, more from what you've got, using technology to be able to do even more business as a firm.
Spot on. Lee, what about you?
Obviously, I agree. But the only thing I was going to add is hopefully the markets are a bit different. So from my point of view, I hope for planning reform, which then leads to more self-build and custom build, and we become a little bit more like the rest of the modern world and actually build good quality housing that actually people want through more custom build. I see that happening. 5 years is a long period of time. I think there's a good, you know, we're already seeing growth in those markets. I'm expecting we see continued growth. And then that leading to exactly what you're saying, which is brokers actually moving with the markets and building with those opportunities. And then hopefully, I'd love to see more people in trades as an economy, and then that then leading to more house building by SME builders. You know, I'm not looking to just take over from the large home builders out there, don't get me wrong, but I do think that this is where, you know, we would plug a lot of the gaps that we've got now, and then in 5 years' time, we could be in a very different position with our markets, and I could see personally that taking place and then benefiting from all the things that you've just mentioned with AI and tech. And
Yeah. So look, I'll just give you my brief view is I think we'll have a faster market because the amount of work we're doing on digitising, what the desperate thing is, that whole conveyancing process needs to be digitised. I know there's a lot of people working really hard to deliver that so that we can turn around stuff a lot easier, you know, single signature for documents that everybody accepts. You know, we have this madness, don't we, where you ask for a signature on a form, we ask for a signature on a form, we don't trust your one, we have to get our own. The solicitor wants one because we don't trust theirs, the conveyancer wants one, or the valuer wants something because they don't trust ours. It's madness, isn't it?
Yeah.
The same signature 4 times done differently. So that's where AI and stuff like that, I think, will help. I think interesting on AI, just for me on that one, is it's an enabler to your point rather than something to fear. I saw an article on LinkedIn, it must have been about 3 or 4 months ago, listing all the jobs that are under threat as a result of AI. And it basically said these are all the jobs that logically won't exist in this environment. And it says if you're in one of these, become a master on AI and become useful, not a problem or a result of what's going to happen. And I think that's the key. Embrace it, understand it, because the changes it can make can revolutionize what we do. And as I said, free up more time to do the stuff we like. So I think that's exciting. Look, we have had 49 minutes of really
Wow,
good
we can
conversation
talk.
there. So, yeah, we could have carried on forever, but we'll maybe have to do a part 2. So I'd like to say a big thank you to our guests, Sophie, John and Lee. Please follow us on LinkedIn, because that way you can find out all the good stuff we're doing. And don't forget to follow us on your favourite channel so you get notified when the next episode of The Mortgage Conversation is released. This episode will be released on the 1st of September. The best way to see it is, you choose personal about Apple Podcast or Spotify. If it's on Spotify, you can actually view the recording, but Apple is great if you can't see a screen. But if I do say if you are going to watch it, don't do it whilst driving or operating heavy machinery. That's my safety tip. So it's goodbye from us for a little bit, because after today's one, we're taking a late summer sabbatical just to refresh and relook at the amazing podcast that we do and how can we improve it, how can we make more value for this for our listeners and viewers. So until then, it's goodbye from me and it's goodbye from them. Goodbye.